Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve and I'm joined by the Lady Gamer today. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, if you would just want to introduce yourself and kind of like go over with people, kind of the quick elevator pitch of what you do.
Right, well, hi, my name is Klara, and also known as the Lady Gamer, and I am a writer and developer for different types of tabletop RPGs, mostly in the World of Darkness, Chronicles of Darkness area, mostly when it comes to V5, and a big fan of everything RPG.
One of the things I tend to ask people a lot of times when they come on, especially now during these times, do you find yourself playing more or less during the end times, or the same?
Um, I mean, so I'm a full-time nurse on the side.
Yeah.
So on the side, no, that's my main thing, but it's almost becoming my side thing
You're
now with
right
my
on the
writing.
side, nursing full time.
Just nursing, just once in a while. No, but I, so my work life has been pretty much the same since the pandemic started. It's been it hasn't changed, so I haven't had that much time on my hand to do all the
Okay.
kind of things that other people could do. Um, so I think I'm playing less actually. I'm writing more. I'm playing less.
That is definitely hard if you're working in the industry, part time or more than part time, and then also doing a full time job. It's like
Yeah.
I'll do this thing I really love, then I'll get to do it a lot, and then it's like, oh no, no, I don't get to do it a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing. And like the I've been thinking about, going if the opportunity of going full time with my writing, but I'm not really sure if that's what I want to do, because
Yeah.
even though I love RPGing, I love writing, I love developing, it's not my entire life.
Mm.
I also love nursing. So, I think it's healthy to have that kind of balance. I think a lot of people, they have this big dream of this becoming, being a full time RPG writer or being a full time Twitch RPG video game streamer or something like that, but they kind of forget the darker side of it, and that is that creative works just doesn't get paid. I mean, we do get
Yeah.
paid, but it's just such a minuscule amount until you make a name of yourself enough to actually be able to have a normal life with the pay. So it's not always fun.
There's definitely challenges, and it's like I always feel a little guilty and I lament a little bit on the fact that I feel like it is easier for me as someone who's more of a commentator who talks about, the stuff that you're writing for. It's easier for me to make a living than it is for the people that actually make the stuff we talk about.
I mean, yeah, I think both have challenges, right? Because you you have to entertain in a way where you use yourself and your expressiveness in what you do. Where I can not shower for 4 days and still earn money
Yeah,
by
it's true.
writing in my bed, right? So it just demands different things, right? So I'm not sure if it's easier, but it's definitely different. Yeah.
Yeah, well, not actually like not maybe not easier to do, but I mean an easy. There's more financial opportunities, I should
That
say.
yeah. Yeah, that is very true. I mean, as much as, the fandom and our community loves what we do, it's very niche. It's like very
Yeah.
not a lot of people know what tabletop RPGs are still. So in the entertainment industry, we are like down here somewhere. So and I think visual entertainment, like what you do, commentating YouTube videos, all that stuff, it's just in that way it's easier. I would say so because it's more popular. People know what it is.
But on the plus side, it does seem like, the writing and compensation, for doing these other things in industry is working its way up. It is getting better.
It is, and it's definitely something that we've been, with social media being, becoming bigger and bigger, we tried to ride that wave and try to spread the word of RPGs and tabletop RPGs, because people have been playing RPGs for years without knowing it, just through video games. And if you play a character and you develop that character's story as you play, you can pretty much say that you're playing an RPG. So making that transition from video games, what people kind of know, into tabletop RPG, that's the difficult part, because there's still that stigma about sitting around a table playing in Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, like a group of nerds.
Yeah, yeah.
There's still that kind of stigma about it, and it's very difficult to explain to your colleagues at work, like, yeah, every weekend I sit around the table with my friends and we pretend to be orcs and elves or vampires and werewolves. I mean, it kind of has that. It's not normal enough for people to think, oh, that's so cool. People
Yeah,
think
I
that's
worked
something.
I worked in and around construction all my life pretty much, and I would rather people think I did anything but play RPGs with my weekends.
Exactly, and that's the problem, right? We don't want that stigma. We
Yeah.
want people to think, oh, that's so cool, I want to try that. And that's why we're still down here in the entertainment industry. We gotta inch our way up. I think we're getting there.
Yeah, I mean it's getting better because it's making its way into mainstream media more and more. Um, like D&D is like the brand D&D is bigger than the game D&D at this point, and
Yes, yes.
you can say Dungeons and Dragons to a Muggle, and like probably 8 out of 10 times they'll have an idea of what that is. Um,
Yeah, they'll
but
be like, oh, I saw that on a video show someday. They were like
yeah,
sitting around with some dice or something.
yeah, or they'll ask you, "Do you like sit in the basement dressed up as wizards wearing pointy hats?"
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah. So, what game did you start with?
So start writing on
I start playing, and then we'll go into writing.
reading. What game did I? You mean the very first game I ever played, as in video games or tabletop games or
RPGs.
RPGs? Okay, so my first RPG was Tibia, and it's very old, and not a lot of people know it, but the people who know it, they know what I'm talking about. It is at least I'm not sure if it exists anymore, but it was an open world online RPG game. And I remember my dad, my brother, and I played it when I was around 11, 12, and we had one computer in the house. That was it. And it had like the old modem thing, when someone picked up the phone, you couldn't play anymore. It was horrible. And it was an open world RPG where you just a classic. You can be a druid, you can be a knight, you can be all these different kinds of um, of fighters. And I played that quite a bit, and I think my dad paid for me and my brother and him to have premium accounts. I
Yeah.
don't remember what that entailed, but it was a big deal in my school.
So
So that
did you and your brother get your dad into it, or did your dad get you and your brother into it?
my brother started playing it with his friends, and then he got me into it, and then he got my dad into it, and then there was a fight over the computer every single day because everyone wanted to play Tibia, and my mom was going crazy and didn't want to hear anything or any more about Tibia.
Your mom's ready to throw the computer out the window.
Yes, yes, exactly. And if anyone watching this is interested, it's spelled the way it's said, Tibia, like the
Yeah.
bone in your leg. Yeah, I'm actually interested to see if it's still up and running.
I don't know. It doesn't sound like you'll have time for that and writing and nursing.
Oh, I'll find time. Who needs sleep?
Who needs sleep? Yeah. I went cold turkey on video games. Uh, I would play League of Legends for a bit only because I liked it because I could like play a game and it would end like
Right.
because I discovered City of Heroes and I signed up for like a free account for a weekend And then after that weekend was over, I'm like, I had to uninstall because I'm like, I am like staying up until the sun comes up, and I am
Right.
not going to get anything in life done. And my son was like all about it. He would want to come and watch me play, and I'm like, no, this is just bad. Can't do
I
this.
used to play League of Legends quite a bit actually. It was many years ago.
Yeah.
But I tried to be in like the competitive leagues, and I should have never done that because
Oh
that is
no.
the most toxic place on earth. You have Chernobyl here, and here you have the professional challenging leagues in League of Legends. It is horrible. And it just kind of didn't motivate me to play anymore. And also because I was so bad at it that I just didn't want to do that anymore. It's just embarrassing.
Yeah, I wasn't very good at it either. But that's not why I play. So it was my
So,
team's problem, not mine.
right. Oh yeah, it always is.
Yeah.
And you were pretty good. It was just you had a bad team every time. It's not your fault.
Yeah. The it's such a great community over there as well.
Oh yeah. But I will say my all-time favorite RPG game, all-time favorite, and I'm not sure if anything is ever gonna beat it, is Skyrim. I
Okay.
absolutely love the Elder Scrolls games, and Skyrim is my favorite of them all. I can play that game until my fingers bleed. It is an amazing game. Even if in its vanilla version, like I urge you, if you have a Skyrim and it's heavily modified, just remove them all and just play the vanilla version. It's great.
I wonder if
Still
we'll
full.
ever get a Skyrim movie.
I'm not sure if I want one.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. Like I don't like The Witcher seemed to do pretty well. It looks like they're about to launch the second season of that.
True, very true. Yeah.
Now I don't know if it did well in comparison to like the books and the video games because I haven't read them or played them. But just on its own face, like I enjoyed it. So
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
oh no,
No, I played The Witcher, but
yeah.
I haven't watched the series.
So what was your first tabletop RPG?
My first tabletop RPG was Dungeons and Dragons. I don't remember which version. I was very confused. Um,
Sounds
actually,
typical. Well, that's the
yeah,
normal start.
yeah, I started playing live action role playing before I ever played a tabletop version of it, where I was even more confused and I had no idea what was going on and why all of these adults were around me dressed like orcs. It was a traumatic but great experience. And I think it took me a year after that to actually even know that there was a system to what I was doing and
Uh,
this was based on something. So that was, I was around, I guess I was around 14 when I tried my first tabletop RPG.
oh, so and then you were LARPing even younger then.
Yes, I was. I was 12
Yeah,
when
I've
I
heard that a couple times. I guess it sounds really. It's kind of weird to me, I guess, because I was like in my early 20s before I even knew what a LARP was. And that was only because Ted, my brother-in-law, was doing LARPs, and he was like, I guess he was like late teens, like 18ish, 17ish. Was like the end of high school, beginning of college when he started doing LARPs, and
right.
that's when I kind of like became aware.
Yeah. When was that?
That would have been back in '93 ish.
I mean, yeah, that must be the early start of. I mean, I'm yeah, it must be the early start of live action RPGs, right?
Yeah, I don't even know. Because like I know Ted was like super into it, and he even ended up starting his own LARP and running it for like 5 years. So it was totally his thing. We used to make fun of him for it back in the day.
Still pretty cool.
1970s.
1970s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh, and then it spread internationally during the 80s.
All right.
So it sounds like the 80s is probably when it became a bit more like popular.
Yeah, I remember when Lord of the Rings came out, 2001, the first movie.
Yeah.
That was when it exploded in Europe, at least. I think it exploded in maybe a little bit in the US as well,
Oh
without
yeah,
knowing.
as well.
I think it's like a
Yeah.
worldwide phenomenon. And that was when like the elf orc thing just became this big giant thing.
Yeah. So Brian Smith wants to know if that's an Amsterdamian accent he's detecting.
Oh no, but you're close. You're close. Give it another guess.
There you go. You can keep guessing until you figure it out.
Yeah. You're in the area. You need
Yeah.
to go further north though.
Um. Yeah. So I've got ancestry that's from Åland, which is like an island off of Finland, I guess, or island
Okay.
chain off of Finland.
Oh.
Yeah. That's my great grandparents were from there.
Your Scandinavian blood in yours.
Yeah, yeah. That and a lot of Scotch Irish. And then like 1% of like everything else. I'm a Heinz 57 is what my mom used to say.
That's great.
um, so what is the first tabletop RPG you wrote for?
The first tabletop RPG I wrote for was so I wrote for a book called The Contagion Chronicle, which was my first ever professional work. And looking back on it, that's just a stupid thing to say yes to because I had no idea what I was doing at all.
Yeah,
I was offered this job by one of my friends, Matthew Dawkins, um, and up until then I'd only been writing my own scenarios. But then he reached out and said, "Hey, send me a writing sample. We'll see what we can do." And I got the job. And this book, The Contagion Chronicle, so it encapsulates many of the Chronicles of Darkness kind of subgenres, werewolf, mummy, vampire, in one book, and basically explains how an illness can affect these different subgenres. So that's what it does. That's why it's called the Contagion Chronicle, and we build different scenarios off of that, and kind of in the book we kind of go over how it affects the different genres and all that stuff. And I was required to know quite a bit about every single one of these subgenres to be able to write in a book about them, right? And that's a lot of work because at that time I knew a fair bit about vampire, a little bit about werewolf, nothing about the rest.
yeah,
So it was so much work, but and what I wrote got so many red lines. It was absolutely horrible, but it's still in the book to this day. So and I'm still hired. I didn't get fired after that, so I see it as a success. But I had no idea what I was doing.
yeah. It also might have been an error on the side of the hiring part as well. Not in hiring you, but matching you to the wrong job at that time.
Maybe. I mean, my developer did tell me that this is a big book. You need to know what you're going into, and I was like, yeah, sure. I'll just read a lot, and I did. I did prepare quite a
Yeah,
bit, which is why I could actually write something that was usable for the book.
that's awesome. So how many things have you worked on so far?
Oh no. I have to think. How many things have I worked on? I've worked. I think I just finished my 17th book, which is a book I developed, not wrote in, um, called Children of the Blood 4v5. And it just went out to backers.
Nice.
um, but yeah, I 17 books, and I've worked for Werewolf, Changeling, Geist, Vampire, um, Mummy. I've worked for a few other things that doesn't have anything to do with the Chronicles of Darkness or World of Darkness. I've worked for Subterra 2, which is a board game. I've written a visual novel for them. I work for Culty RPG. Um, yeah, quite a few things actually.
You've been pretty busy. That's pretty prolific. That's a bunch of things to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been way too busy as well. So right now, yeah, I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break just to find myself again after
Yeah.
being kind of swamped for 4 years in a row.
Sometimes we need to, need to recharge the batteries.
You definitely do. Yeah, you definitely do.
So, what is your favorite to work on?
Vampire, I would say. Just because Vampire has always been my favorite game, right? It always comes back to like a very simple reason with these kind of things, and it's
Yeah.
just that I like the game.
Do
This
do
is
you claim a clan of your own?
It depends. Some days I feel like some clan, some days I feel like the other. Today I feel like a Toreador, but yesterday I was more of a Tremere, you know.
We've also just exhausted all my knowledge of vampire. So,
Well, I mean, if you haven't played it yet, I obviously can recommend it. But yeah, it's Vampire is my first World of Darkness RPG I ever tried. First World of Darkness live action roleplay I ever tried. So yeah, it has a special place in my heart.
makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't mind playing some. Just the problem is always the same. There's far too many good games out there to play, and just not enough time.
Right, exactly. Oh god. If only we had more time.
Yeah. So I feel like I would probably lean towards Werewolf, though.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, maybe for
Werewolf.
some obvious reasons. Um,
Oh, is that too specific?
I'm sorry. What was that?
Is it Werewolf the Apocalypse
Oh,
or
that's definitely too specific. I don't know the differences between them.
okay, yeah. It's different versions of the game basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, the concept is kind of the same. You're a
Yeah.
werewolf.
Yeah, well, yeah, so I'd probably play whatever someone introduced me to first. you know,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so what kind of stuff do you kind of work on or like working on it? Is it like scenarios and adventure type stuff, or more like supplements?
So I am not a system writer. I'm not very good with numbers. Every time I've tried it, my developers told me, Clara, I'm never giving you the systems chapter again. Um, I love writing NPCs. I
Okay.
think that is my forte. I love writing about specific areas. I love describing areas in the game, like nightclubs or forests. And I love writing scenarios. I love writing small scenarios. And my favorite work I've ever done was a scenario in the book Chicago by Night, which is called The Sacrifice. And it's the greatest thing I've done to date with my work, and I'm very proud of it. Um, and people seem to like it, so that's great. Um, I think one of the things that makes me love to write NPCs specifically also comes from my nursing job. You know, I meet so many different people every single day. I hear so many life stories, and to kind of apply that to the characters in the book I'm writing, I think that's a great connection. I mean, I that's what I get from my nursing job, and I also get body horror, a lot of body horror, because you know, nurse, you see everything that the body can possibly produce, even things that the body wasn't supposed to produce. Um, and you see a lot of, as horrible as it sounds, you know, you see a lot of pain and agony when you work as a nurse. You know how the body reacts to a lot of stress, and you know how the mind reacts to it. So it helps when you create people, believable people.
And I imagine so. Yeah, and you have all the imagery to draw from.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I of course just to make sure I don't use anyone specifically I've ever met, but I do draw inspiration if I meet someone where I think, wow, you are an interesting person. I take that and I sometimes apply it to an NPC. I mean, why not?
Yeah. No, I assumed as much. You know, I think we all do that to a certain extent. Some people have more access, like yourself, to more people so you can have a broader base to kind of draw from. But yeah, like the best NPCs you can come up with come from actual real people and traits that you've experienced.
I mean, yeah, because that makes them more real, that they actually exist, kind of.
Yeah. We have an ER doctor in one of our games. And so like yeah, every time we get together, so it's like, hey, Dr. Kurt, anything weird happened this week in the ER? So we always have to dedicate a little segment of our gaming time to the weird things that go on in an ER.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have stories. We have many stories.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of Reddits just for
Yes, there is. There is.
that, for grossing people out. Um, so have you ever been to Chicago?
No.
Does writing about a place make you want to go there more or less, or that doesn't matter?
Mm, I guess it depends on what I'm writing about it. I
Yeah.
mean, so I will say, in in the sacrifice, the scenario I wrote for Chicago by Night, I didn't really go too much into what kind of city Chicago is because I feel like that was kind of what we talked about in the team. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for me to do that. I've never been there, I never lived there, and we had a lot of people on the book that actually lived in Chicago, had been living in Chicago, and knew the city. So we wanted them to take part of the more city focused parts of the book,
Mm.
where I would look at the more vampire part because that was what I knew how to do. So I would kind of take what they've written and kind of be like, okay, I need this nightclub, I need this area. This area sounds good, and kind of gain knowledge about it. But it does sound like a very interesting city. Absolutely.
Do the people that you work with know you're also a vampire expert?
They know that, oh, Klara, she writes books, and
Yeah.
that's kind of that's it.
Then that's it.
Because
It's probably
if I
better
get
your
to
patients
explain,
don't know you're a vampire expert. They're like, "Is-
yeah,
does
no, it's not
does
the question.
Clara really need this blood, or is she just taking the blood to take the blood?"
Exactly. Why does Claire's patients need that much blood all the time? So weird.
It's so odd. Is there any particular project you would really like to work on? Like if you had your pick of uh, of projects, you just like, or you could decide a project to be done.
That's a good question. Because I kind of, now that I've developed a vampire book, I feel like I've almost reached the peak
Yeah.
of what I can do. Um, I don't know, maybe because I was developing that book with Matthew Dawkins, the guy that hired me to begin with, and it would be fun to maybe develop my own book on my own entirely. That could be kind of fun. I guess that would be the next step.
Do you have
But it's
any ideas what you would want that book to be about?
oh, it has to be something about vampires.
Well, I figured that was a given. Like,
Yeah.
is there any like directions that you would like to explore that you haven't got a chance to?
Hmm. I wish I could just say, yeah, this is what I really
Yeah.
want to write about, but I don't really have anything, to be honest. Like I kind of just take what I'm offered and I just jump into it. And just like the Contagion Chronicle, I just kind of learn as I go, and then sometimes it works and oftentimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't have any big passion for anything other than what I've already been on, I would say.
I know some writers too, just and people in general, just like to be given projects and then like the direction, and then they get to run with it.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with that either.
No, no, exactly. I mean, we don't always all of us don't have to be rabid like fans of what we do. I mean, I like what I do. I like writing vampire stuff. I like the community, but it's not my life. I have other things too. So it's, I have other passions as well.
Wait, so when you're gaming, do you like to be the GM or a player more?
That depends. That very much depends. I like both roles. I feel like, if you run a long campaign as a storyteller or GM, you're kind of like, oh man, I just want to be a player now. I just want to
Yeah.
be a player for a while, and then you're a player for a while, and then you're like, you know what? I have this great idea for a game, and then it's kind of that's how it is for me. Like now, I've been a player on quite a few games on YouTube with Red Moon role playing, and now I just kind of want to write something again. You know what? Now that we're talking about that, Call of Cthulhu. I want to work on Call of Cthulhu. Um, because and the reason why I'm mentioning that is because I'm currently writing a Call of Cthulhu game. So I would love to work on a Call of Cthulhu book. That would be great.
So there's a question in the chat from Brian. How do I keep myself from writing too much? I'm just prepping for a D&D game, but I have a hard time not overwriting things.
Right. So um if you mean overwriting by putting too many details in and much unnecessary text, I would definitely recommend when you write a scenario, you have kind of a foundation before you begin. You have bullet points of this this part of the game needs this. This part of the game needs this. This NPC has these three important information to give to the players, or this NPC has this background story. Keep it simple because the players are not gonna even explore 80%, like 20% of what you're doing if you write too much, and it's just a lot of work for essentially for nothing. So become a more structured. I would say that's and keep to that a list of bullet points you made in the beginning. Keep looking at that and be like, am I writing too much now? Is this unnecessary? Yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, and I feel like too, if you kind of go with that kind of a structure, then like as you play in those bullet points, you can start like filling in the things that the players want it from you. So
Mm,
next time, maybe you can preemptively do that a little bit. If they seem to be asking like the same kind of questions all the time.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the golden rule of running a game. You can't just be like, oh well, I had a story in my mind, but now the players are going this direction. What am I gonna do? You that's just how it is. You just go with the flow, and you always have to rewrite your story because your players are never the same. Your scenario might stay the same, but your players are not, and they will decide things that will obstruct your storyline, and that's a wonderful part of it because they're gonna interpret your game the way they see it and make it unique to them. So it's kind of it's something that I'm very aware of when I run games myself. It's always be player focused, be character focused. The story is fine. It's great to have the story, but that's in the background. We have the characters first and foremost, and we want to put them into focus. We want them to know that their characters can actually make a difference and they're meaningful, um, and give them success, give them confidence, because that's what makes a great game. I think we've all tried to be a character or player in a game where you kind of just feel like you're just there and it doesn't really matter what player or what character you are. The story will progress as it's done so many times before. You can't make a difference. It doesn't matter. Your character creation process doesn't matter. The background story of your character doesn't matter because your GM or storyteller is so obsessed that his or her story is progressing the way that they wanted it to, that they just kind of forget you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is great advice. I mean, I feel like you're absolutely correct in the sense that we've all had or been part of those games, or maybe even run those games, right? Where we have a story that we're going to tell, or the GM is a story they're going to tell, and it doesn't really matter that much. They're going to move heaven and earth to make sure that you fulfill what they see your purposes in that story.
I mean, if that is your attitude as a DM, just write a book instead.
Yeah,
because then it
pretty
doesn't
much.
matter that you're
There's
running a game for people and characters with personalities and backstories.
I think there's like a meme like that, right? Like where someone's like, I want to, I want to play a D&D game, but I want to run all the characters and be the DM. And then someone is also, yeah, it's like, yeah, that's called writing a novel. Um,
Oh, I actually didn't know. I have to find that after our chat. That's pretty good.
yeah, it's out there somewhere. Yeah, so like as a GM, you're always like trying to come up with the story that you're trying to tell, but then you want that story to be refocused through the lens of the players, right? And help
Yes,
them
exactly.
facilitate telling their story, right? And I guess the magic of RPGs is that story that you have in mind, and then like the story that the players want to tell. And it's like when those two things come together, you know.
Exactly. And you want to create that balance. That's when good role play comes into the picture, you know? And I think I come from a Nordic country and we have what's called Nordic RPG, and it's very focused on the character. And maybe that's why I'm so passionate about it. Role playing culture changes in America sometimes, or I've seen a couple of times where it's all about winning, which is just not what I've been raised with. It's not what I know role playing to be. It's not a wrong version of role playing. You can certainly do that, and it can definitely be a fun game to play to go slay the dragon or whatever. But what I've been writing and what I'm trying to put in my books is um, is learning how to lose. You know, learning that losing is not always a bad thing. Learning that character death is not always a bad thing. You know, it sucks to lose a character that you really like, that you really love. And I always advocate that you, as a storyteller or DM, should talk to your player before you kill their character. But make the death amazing. Make the death something memorable and worthwhile, and something you can think back on and think that scene was just the greatest death scene that I had ever played in. And I really feel like my character was valued here. That is the beauty of losing, and losing in a way that doesn't traumatize you, you know and also have a lot of flaws in your character. No one, the reason why Superman is not very popular is because Superman is unbeatable. We don't want that. We want people that are characters that have flaws that we can exploit, flaws that creates good role playing. Because if you can just win over everything, I mean, that's just not fun.
No, that is definitely a good point. And I came up in an era where there was a lot of like antagonistic style GMing, and that
Right.
was like very much a part of the game, and it might even just be like an American thing because that's where D&D originated, and that's where that game style did.
Mhm.
But it also like came from wargaming, right? So it was just an evolution. And now I find the game is far more narrative driven all over. Um, and it's also a lot more enjoyable too when everyone
Yeah.
gets some input.
Yeah, I mean, I've run games of Vampire before where I've not even asked the players to roll the dice because we've just role played our way out of it, you know? And if you trust your players and if they trust you, you can have an amazing game without number crunching, without having to look at your character sheet at all. It's just role playing. And there's so many different styles of it. And my way is not necessarily the best way, but that's definitely how I enjoy it.
Have you ever in your writing drawn from real life inspiration as far as like maybe gore or body horror, and with your professional background being like, I guess at a certain point you either learn to compartmentalize or you get desensitized to that stuff, where your editors or the sign to work to, you're like, can you maybe tone this back a little?
um, yeah, I remember a few times where I maybe went a little ham, as they say.
Yeah.
And Well, the thing is, body horror is such a writing horror in the world that we're in right now is difficult because horror is um inherently something that is gonna offend you in some way. Not offend you, but really like awake some negative feelings inside of you in some way. It's gonna alert you. Is I think is what I'm trying to say. And we are living in a world right now where there's a lot of focus on not being offensive, not using the wrong names for things and all that stuff, which is great. It's absolutely amazing, but it does make the traditional way of writing horror difficult. It's not easy. And body horror is one of the few things that are actually still sacred in a way, or still, the way that it used to be, where, no one's going to be offended necessarily by an arm being ripped off,
Yeah,
or an eye popping out, or someone vomiting blood all over. They're going to be disgusted and think that's nasty. I don't want to read that. But we're not going to personally offend someone. So body horror is such an important thing. So it's really something I try to incorporate in my games, but sometimes I do it too much. And there's been a couple of times where I've been told to just tone it down.
do you, um are you just a fan of the horror genre in general, like horror movies, horror books?
Yeah, I mean horror books, definitely. Horror movies, yes, uh, but there's just so many few good ones.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's a difficult genre to be happy about when it comes to movies because their stories are just so bad sometimes. I mean, if you want to watch a slasher movie, that's great. Or maybe a B horror movie, that's great
yeah,
too. But if you really love the story and things, the horror movie genre is difficult.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like it's gotten worse.
It it depends on where you look.
Yeah.
I will say if you want good horror movies, try to look to Sweden or Finland. They have really good horror movies.
Okay. I
Denmark
will
does
keep
not
that
look
in
good.
mind. I used to like horror movies, but my wife doesn't. And usually,
Oh,
like, that's the person I watch most movies with. So at a certain point, like, stop. But now my daughter is kind of like into that stuff.
oh, cool. Yeah.
And she's like been into that stuff at like a really early age. It was kind of weird. I think it was not that it was a great movie, but I think I was flipping through the channels and Lake Placid was on. And like she was like real young and she flipped out because I didn't because I passed it and she just wanted to see giant crocodiles eat people.
I mean, yeah. Uh, I will say I think my favorite B horror movie is Toxic Avenger, and there's nothing that really beats Lloyd Kaufman when it comes to movie making, B movie making. It's amazing.
Toxic
If you haven't watched
Avenger.
it, I
I
will.
don't
I
know.
will.
Is that horror? Like,
Yeah, it's horror. He's a monster.
yeah, but he's the Toxic Avenger. He's a superhero.
Yeah, I guess. Well, he's something.
He's well, sort of, yeah. So Brian Smith says top three Nordic horror movie recommendations.
Oh no.
Put you right on the spot.
Oh no. Hexon is one of my favorite movies. I think it's from the 1920s. It's a silent movie, but so great. The visuals, just amazing. It really is. And it's spelled Haxen, I think, and it's actually a Danish horror movie. Danish and something else. I can't remember. That's a great movie. We have Trollejern, or I think it's called the Troll Hunter in English. It's a horror movie, but it's about trolls. It's Norwegian,
Yeah.
obviously, and it's about looking at trolls as more of a species of animal than the, oh, I'm a troll, I wear overalls and I live under a bridge. It's more of a, this is a giant creature that's causing havoc and smells Christian blood. You know, it's a really cool movie. Um, what would the last one be? Well, it's difficult.
And by the way, trolls living under the bridge wearing overalls is very specific.
I know. I know. As a Scandinavian, I don't know. I have a very specific picture in mind when I think about trolls. What would the last one be? Do I even think that there are any more recommendable? There is one, and I'm not sure if I remember the name of it. That's the problem. I think it's called Satyr, maybe, and it's a Swedish horror movie. And I haven't watched it, but it's gotten great recommendation.
Troll Hunter came right up. I didn't think it would because there's a Netflix animated series called Troll Hunter. So I was like, that's gonna be hard to find.
That one.
But it actually came right up, right on the first page. Actually, the very first search term.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a good movie.
It came out in 2010.
Yep. And then Hexon, which is just amazing.
Silent movie though, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So are you a movie buff then?
No.
No.
I like movies.
Well, how did you discover that movie if it's from the 1920s? Silent.
I think it's Danish. I guess I just kind of knew it because I'm Danish.
Okay.
It's pretty in a horror genre. I think it's a pretty well-known movie, to be honest.
Okay, I will take your word for it. Have you been to any of the cons here in the States?
No. I've been to a lot of cons in Europe. Been to UK Games Expo, a couple of cons in Scotland. Been in one in Ireland, one in Denmark as well. But I haven't been to any of the big ones in the US.
So when things open back up and the end times finally end, what would be the first convention you'd want to go to?
I want to go back to the UK Games Expo just because it's a great con. And traveling from Denmark to America for a weekend con is a lot of travel for a little amount of con.
We have some 4-day cons though.
Yeah, true, but still, it's a lot of stress to go through.
Not enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to wrap it into like I have a friend from Australia, and every time he comes to the States, he flies into like the opposite end of the country that he wants to go to, and then drives to where he wants to go to just because he wants to like experience the rest of the country.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And maybe I could wrap it up in like a vacation or something.
Yeah. Maybe. But, also it does make a lot of sense to go to conventions that are local or closer. Do they have any good cons in Denmark?
Are there any good cons? No.
No.
Well, not something worth traveling for.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like here, like in the States, it's like it's not like every state has a good con. Or like we just finally on the East Coast got like a good gaming convention, PAX Unplugged. I mean, there's other ones like Dragon Con, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
But it's more of a pop culture.
I know that the Onyx Path crew, the company I work for, go to Gen Con.
Gen Con, I've seen them there, and PAX Unplugged.
Yeah.
They hit all the big ones. I usually run into Jason Carl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's everywhere.
He is everywhere. Only at night, though. During the day, you can't find him. Yeah. So, Are you playing in any games currently?
Sorry.
Are you playing in any games currently?
I am. Yep, I'm playing in a Call of Cthulhu game that is being recorded for people to watch for free on Red Moon Role Playing's YouTube channel, where I play a child in a school of children that needs to be taught how to behave correctly. And it's a Call of Cthulhu game, so you can kind of imagine how
Uh,
that going. It's a great series, and I really recommend it. Not because I'm in it, but because Matthew is a great storyteller. If you haven't heard him storytell before, I would definitely recommend it. And I'm playing in a few Discord games, also run by Matthew Dawkins. And yeah,
you said Red Room?
Red Moon
Red Moon.
or Red Moon. That could be kind of a cool name, though.
I'll have to look that up and check it out for sure.
Yeah. It's called It Started and Ended with Screams.
Start it and end it with screams.
Yes. So if anyone will look it up, totally recommend it. Red Moon Roleplaying in general, quality podcast.
Red Moon role playing. Got it.
Mm-hmm. I think
Ooh.
an episode actually came out today.
So you play I think you mentioned them a couple times for stream games that
Yeah.
you're in. Okay,
Yes.
cool. So
I
do you
ran the
regularly are you regularly in streamed games then?
Yes. I ran the sacrifice for Matthew Dawkins and a few of the guys from Red Moon Roleplaying. And I think they were actually the first people to run the game when it was released. So if anyone is interested in the sacrifice, they can go watch it there. I'll also give a shout out to Queen's Court Gaming, who's also not currently, but have run the sacrifice. And they are great RPG podcasts as well. They're very new, but they are absolutely amazing. Queen's Court Gaming.
So the sacrifice. What is that?
It's a good question. Guess you have to buy the book to find out. No, it's so you have to know a little bit about the vampire lore to kind of have it make sense. But basically, you have the Camarilla and you have the Sabbat.
Okay.
And the Sabbat is the bad guys, according to me. And the Camarilla is the good guys. You know, the Camarilla is the people that abide by the law, that try to be good little boys and girls. And the Sabbat is the complete opposite. So you have clans in the Sabbat and you have clans in the Camarilla. And the sacrifice is about one of the Sabbat clans wanting to transfer into the Camarilla, which is a very big thing.
So
And
do you mind if I add the link to that game for people to check out?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I will do that, folks. So I'll put in the description with the other links for people to check out to the playlist.
Mm-hmm.
So so apparently you like playing in stream games. How do you think how does that differ for you playing in a stream game compared to playing like just your home game?
Oh, for me, it's a big difference because if you play in a stream game, you have to entertain, right? You don't necessarily have to entertain if you're just sitting at home and playing. You know, you can just kind of be yourself and laugh about it. And when you're playing on a podcast, something that people are actually going to listen to, you need to do a good job, I think. For it to be worth listening to, I wouldn't want to listen to something that was, you know, what people didn't try. That's just that's how I am. Yeah, just my opinion.
So Charles wants to know what's your favorite monsters?
My favorite monsters? Shoot. Vampires. Surprise.
Shocking.
Yeah, I know. That is my favorite monsters, and monsters they are.
How did you get into vampires? Were you into vampires before you were into like gaming?
Yes, I was. Actually, there's a funny story about that. When I was a little girl, I had a pen pal, and we used to draw drawings for each other and send each other drawings. And I had a phase in my life where I would only draw graveyards. That was the only thing I drew. And it came to a point where the parents of the other girl, my pen pal, they called my parents and said, I think you gotta you gotta have a talk with Klara because she keeps sending drawings of graveyards to Josephine. So I think the horror has just been something that's been very curious to me. Yeah, always. But vampire specifically, I think I got into when I watched an interview with a vampire. Amazing movie. Yeah.
That makes sense. And what kind of pictures was Josephine sending you?
I don't remember. Probably something more normal.
Not
Yeah,
graveyards.
yeah. No.
That is an interesting phone call for your parents.
Uh huh.
So what is it about vampires that uh draws you to them?
Yeah. What is it? I think how close they are to humanity. That is kind of what draws me to them. You know, they look like humans. They function in society. They don't become these like monstrous beings that you can't connect to a human at all. They are almost human, but there's just this beast inside of them
Yeah.
that they constantly have to quell, which is unendingly interesting to me. You know, how to balance that, how to balance your humanity versus the beast. Always been very fascinated by that. I think horror is scary when it's relatable. So I think that's why I like vampires.
Because it's so close to being any of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't necessarily look at someone and say, oh, you know, they're not a vampire. You couldn't do that.
So did you have a goth phase?
I had an emo face.
Oh, an emo phase. Okay.
Yeah. It was goth. We just called it something else, and I don't know why. We put more colors in our hair. I
Uh
think
huh.
what the difference was. Yeah. Oh yeah, I did. I have an emo. Oh my goodness. Yes, I did. Yes, and it was
Well, I
definitely
mean,
my face back then.
I
It's
learned
my
later there's lots of different types of goth anyway.
yeah.
So, I mean, there's a pastel goth. So,
That there's a cyber goth. There's so many goth. Yeah, it's wonderful.
so does that make do a lot of goths make their way into your writing?
I love what
Goths.
goths. No, no, I
Too
don't consider
tropey.
myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, the archetypical vampire with like the trench coat and like the have black hat and like less long hair. No. We want normal people because that's that's more relatable.
And then more monstrous later.
Oh yeah, monsters. That part too.
No, the relatable makes them more monstrous.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Kind
Yeah.
of the dichotomy. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, what kind of stories do you like to tell?
What kind of stories do I like to tell? Stories where you are challenged on your ethical and moral foundation. And it sounds very deep, but basically what it is that you are put into situations where you really have to divide brain and heart. You know, you maybe you have this mission you have to get through, you have to get information from this person, but maybe the person you have to get information from just lost their child. So how are you going to go about that? Like, you have a time schedule, you got to get information from this person. You can't just be aggressive
Yeah.
and tear them down. You have to use your empathy, and I love when people have to think when they play, and not just roll a dice.
Hard choices.
Absolutely. That's what immerses you in role playing. You
Yeah.
know, if you just roll a die, you don't have to do anything. You just, oh yeah, I rolled 3 successes, so I do the thing. I want people to think. I want people to be like, what would I do in this situation? How is my character gonna go about this?
Yeah. I can totally dig on that. In one of the more recent games I ran, one of the villains kind of left a booby trap behind, which was a demon and a little girl. But I had the players hang out with the little girl for like a session first and
Yeah,
get to know the person and the child first,
exactly.
and then like, oh, do we destroy this demon and the child?
Exactly. Yeah. That
uh,
is and that's where it becomes interesting. And if people, it depends on what kind of players you have, because some players don't want to immerse themselves, and that's fine. You don't have to have this big immersive tearful experience every time you role play. You can just have fun. But if you do have players that want that play, that want to be like, what the hell do I do? What is the right thing to do here?
yeah.
Then it becomes a really interesting experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've also in the past had fun with just doing little things like tweaking a monster's appearance, like a ghost,
Yeah.
or some kind of specter or something like that, and making them look like children because their
Uh-huh.
appearance doesn't matter for the monster at all, but it affects the players at the table
Exactly.
and how
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want to interact with it.
Yeah.
So we are at the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head out?
Well, thank you for having me here. It's a lot of fun.
Well,
Relaxing.
thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, and adding some further insights. As always, links are in the description. Go
Yep.
find Clara and follow around the interwebs.
Go
Not
follow
in a
me on
creepy
Twitter.
way. Over on Twitter and Instagram. And
Yep.
until next time, stay nerdy.
Bye.